Grandma, what's wrong? Does your stomach hurt?
Jennifer, noticing something was amiss and still in her pajamas, rushed over. Tears welled up in her big eyes. I've worried her. It's okay, I'm fine. I wanted to say that and stroke her small head. But even something as simple as that, I couldn't do with my body now.
Jennifer, quiet down. Isn't it about time you went to preschool?
Nancy, dressed in an outfit that would make anyone think she was about to head to a tropical paradise, looked down with a puzzled expression at me crouched on the floor and Jennifer about to cry.
What are you doing? Lying down here. If you catch a cold, it'll be a bother.
No, I'm not lying down here because I want to. I wanted to say that, but still, my mouth wouldn't move properly. Jennifer finally began to cry and pleaded with Nancy.
Grandma looks like she's suffering.
Please, help. Jennifer clung to Nancy's feet. Even Nancy had to realize something was wrong from Jennifer's desperate behavior. And I believed she would help.
Huh? She's probably just tired. She'll get better with some sleep. Jennifer, bring Grandma a blanket. It'll be troublesome if you catch a cold from her.
Brushing off Jennifer as if she were a nuisance, Nancy actually said that. Moreover, she avoided Jennifer, who tried to cling to her again, and headed towards the entrance.
Oh, that's right. Lisa, please make sure to take good care of Jennifer.
Just before the door opened, those were the last words I heard from Nancy before I lost consciousness. My name is Lisa. I was a housewife who lived with just my husband, Thomas, after our son, Daniel, got married and left home. However, Thomas passed away just before our 25th wedding anniversary. The cause was cancer, common as it may be. It wasn't a passionate love, but we got along well, so we dated, married, and stayed together. But to say I don't feel lonely now would be a lie. They say you don't know what you've got till it's gone, and my feelings for Thomas now are exactly that. Perhaps as a punishment for such thoughts, or maybe due to unnoticed accumulated stress, I collapsed at home after things settled down a bit following Thomas's funeral. Suddenly, my consciousness faded. The next time I opened my eyes, I was in an unfamiliar room, with my worried son, Daniel, peering at me.
Mom. You're awake.
Contrary to Daniel's relief, I was confused and couldn't grasp the situation. Sensing this, Daniel carefully explained what had happened. A close neighbor, concerned about me, noticed something was wrong and immediately arranged for an ambulance. While I was unconscious, I was transported to the hospital, underwent tests, and it was discovered that I had low blood sugar. This made sense to me. I have had type 1 diabetes since birth and was careful with my insulin injections. However, Thomas's passing, arranging the funeral, and the ensuing disruption to my diet led to this episode of hypoglycemia. Fortunately, an early discovery helped manage the situation, but if I hadn't been on good terms with the neighbors, if the neighbors had arrived any later, thinking about all those what-ifs is terrifying. You know, Mom, I have a suggestion. Daniel started, after finishing his explanation. It seemed like he had something difficult to say.
You're getting on in years, and you'll be alone in that house, right? And there's no guarantee something like this won't happen again. It might not end up with a lucky rescue next time.
So, well, I pretty much understood what Daniel wanted to say. He was suggesting that we live together. I am 52 years old, still feeling quite capable of living on my own. But from someone else's perspective, especially after such an incident, concerns are understandable. However, moving in with Daniel, who has his own family, brings up a significant concern for me. That is the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law conflict. To be honest, I find Daniel's wife, Nancy, difficult to get along with. She barely responds when spoken to and avoids eye contact. Moreover, her somewhat condescending attitude is hard for me to stomach. While it might be a common mother-in-law and daughter-in-law conflict, living under the same roof would likely be a significant stress for both of us. The risk of living alone versus the stress of living together. To me, both seemed equally daunting. And then, there's also the matter of Daniel's personality. Daniel has a kind nature, which is both his strength and weakness. It makes me wonder how he'll handle living with Nancy, who doesn't seem fond of me, and me, who feels uneasy around Nancy.
Are you suggesting we live together?
I broached the subject before Daniel could. Despite the obvious hint, Daniel seemed surprised.
Given the conversation, that's the natural conclusion, isn't it? But what about Nancy? She must feel uncomfortable, right?
Truthfully, it's more than just discomfort, there's an air of dislike. But I couldn't just bluntly say that. Hinting at it, Daniel's expression softened.
Then, it's fine. Actually, Nancy was worried about you too. She said it would be tough for you to be alone in that house, so if you're okay with it, she really wants us to live together.
Now, it was my turn to be surprised. Nancy thought that? What's going on? Maybe Nancy really was worried about me. I shook off my suspicions. No matter how she treated me, this was a matter of life and death. She must have really been concerned. I should be ashamed for worrying them so much.
Besides, Jennifer was happy when we talked about living together. She's looking forward to being with Mom.
My granddaughter, Jennifer, is turning 5 this year. She's a dear, adorable granddaughter who loves me. When Thomas was alive, she frequently visited our home. Despite her young age, this incident must have worried her deeply. Mentioning Jennifer made it impossible for me to refuse Daniel's suggestion.
All right. After I'm discharged, I'll move to your house. I'll need to sort out my things, so it'll be after I'm ready.
Thank you, Mom. Somehow, I ended up being thanked. Though I felt I should be the one expressing gratitude. Afterwards, my health steadily improved, and I was able to be discharged from the hospital. Returning home, even after just a few days, felt nostalgically distant. But now, I must move out completely from there. It's sad, but a promise is a promise with Daniel and his family. I can't worry that family any further. Scolding myself for any slackness, I diligently packed my belongings. And thus, the day of moving in, though it took time, finally arrived. Daniel, Jennifer, and even Nancy seemed pleased with my visit.
I guess I was overthinking it, huh?
Although I took Daniel's words at face value during my hospital stay, I couldn't help but suspect Nancy's words might have a hidden agenda as time went by. Seeing Nancy welcome me with a smile confirmed my worries were unfounded. I believed in Nancy's welcoming nature. However, our cordial relationship was only at the beginning. Gradually, Nancy showed her true colors, and our relationship began to fray.
Did you finish cleaning? If so, can you take care of that area next?
Nancy, lounging on the living room sofa, issuing commands. She didn't take her eyes off her mobile phone, possibly texting a friend. Despite her irritating attitude, as someone living under their roof and having caused worry and inconvenience due to my condition, I felt indebted. Holding back what I wanted to say, I focused on the housework. Daniel had mentioned that Nancy was a housewife. However, she seldom did any housework, and meals were always simple. Cleaning was done only when she felt like it, with Daniel and Jennifer taking on most of the chores. Worse yet, her attitude deteriorated further since I moved in.
Mom, she never did much before, but since Grandma came, she does even less.
Jennifer's sad expression as she told me this is unforgettable. I wondered if my coming was a mistake, but Jennifer herself dispelled such thoughts.
But, I'm not lonely anymore since Grandma came. Dad is always at work, and I was always alone at home. The meals weren't tasty. It's a secret because it would upset Dad, but I was really lonely. But now that Grandma is here and helps out, I'm not lonely anymore. Thank you, Grandma.
Jennifer told me this with a bright smile. Hearing that, regardless of Nancy, I felt motivated to do my best for Jennifer's sake. No matter how much Nancy might harass me, I diligently did the housework. Fortunately, with the savings from the insurance Thomas left behind, I could buy groceries and cook meals. Despite Nancy's harsh critique such as,
"This food doesn't suit my taste,"
the food was well received by Jennifer and Daniel, so it wasn't a problem. Daniel, whose reaction I hadn't much hoped for, didn't say anything about the situation. He's inherently kind-hearted. Even when he saw me being harassed by Nancy, he would only mutter a small word of caution with a troubled look. Encouraged by Daniel's passive response, Nancy's behavior worsened. Initially, it was just giving orders for cleaning and laundry, but eventually, she left all care of Jennifer to me, doing nothing herself. Her days out with friends increased from a few times a week to nearly every day, coming home only for meals, showers, and sleep. Her return times varied, sometimes during dinner with Jennifer and me. Even then, Nancy expected dinner to be ready immediately, forcing me to stop preparing our meal. For Jennifer's upbringing, I subtly suggested keeping dinner times consistent. However,
I'm letting you live in a house that was meant for 3. Lisa should just stay quiet and take care of the house.
she responded. Moreover,
Such unappealing food. Can't you make something that looks more appealing?
she complained and, to top it off, added condiments to her food out of spite, saying,
See, bad food is bad no matter what.
leaving most of it and returning to her room. I felt terrible for Jennifer, who was concerned for me, but even that began to mentally wear me down. Amidst such stressful days, a certain illness struck me again. Oh, that's strange. It was the morning when I saw Daniel off to work, thinking of getting Jennifer ready for preschool next. Suddenly, I couldn't muster any strength. Despite having breakfast with the family while enduring Nancy's snide remarks just a moment ago, hunger pangs struck me. Moreover, I shivered uncontrollably despite not being cold. Ah, that's right. In my confused thoughts, I remembered neglecting my insulin injections recently due to being overwhelmed with household chores. Despite my panic, my body collapsed on the spot.
Grandma, what's wrong? Does your stomach hurt?
Jennifer, noticing something was amiss and still in her pajamas, rushed over. Tears welling up in her big eyes. Ah, I've worried her. It's okay, I'm fine. I wanted to say that and stroke her small head. But even something as simple as that, I couldn't manage with my current state.
Jennifer, quiet down. Isn't it about time you went to preschool?
Nancy, dressed as if she was about to head to a tropical destination, looked down with a puzzled expression at me crouched on the floor and Jennifer about to cry.
What are you doing, Lisa? Lying down here. If you catch a cold, it'll be a bother.
No, I'm not lying down here because I want to. I wanted to say that, but still, my mouth wouldn't move properly. In my stead, or perhaps because she couldn't bear it any longer, Jennifer finally began to cry and pleaded with Nancy.
Mom, Grandma looks like she's suffering. Please, help.
Jennifer clung to Nancy's feet. Even Nancy, upon seeing Jennifer's desperate state, would likely sense something was wrong and come to help. Yes, that's what I believed.
She's probably just tired. She'll get better with some sleep. Jennifer, bring Grandma a blanket. It'll be troublesome if you catch a cold from her.
Rushing off Jennifer, who clung to her as if she were a nuisance, Nancy declared just that. Far from helping, Nancy avoided Jennifer as she tried to cling even more desperately and headed towards the entrance.
Oh, that's right. Lisa, please make sure to take good care of Jennifer.
Those were the last words I heard from Nancy before I lost consciousness, just before the door opened. When I woke up, just like that day, an unfamiliar ceiling stretched out before me. And Daniel, looking even more likely to cry than before, was peering down at me.
Mom, I'm so glad you're awake.
Ah, it feels like we've had this conversation before. While my consciousness was still not fully clear, Daniel was simply overjoyed.
I'm so glad, so glad.
Choking up with emotion as he expressed his relief at my safety. Outside, it must be raining, as Daniel's faint voice was drowned out by the sound of rain. Within my hazy thoughts, various questions surfaced. Where am I? Why is Daniel, who should have gone to work, here? And then,
That's right. I need to. Jennifer.
I remembered needing to prepare Jennifer for preschool. I tried to get up, but lacked the strength to do so.
Mom, don't push yourself. It's really dangerous this time.
Daniel, in an uncharacteristically stern tone, insisted I stay put. My condition must have been serious. It seemed best to remain still. Yet, I couldn't leave my questions unanswered.
Where is this? This is the hospital. I rushed back when I heard you had collapsed, and then, seeing you like that, I called an ambulance immediately. That's why we're here.
I see. Something nagged at me. But my cloudy mind couldn't grasp what it was.
When you were brought to the hospital, they diagnosed you with hypoglycemia, just like before. According to the doctors, you're also suffering from malnutrition. I'm sorry, I should have been more attentive.
Daniel looked down, guilt-ridden. I slowly shook my head. My negligence in managing my health had once again caused them worry. Daniel wasn't to blame.
What about Nancy?
I managed to ask with effort. Nancy must have returned home and informed Daniel about the situation. Despite being seemingly abandoned at one point, it was thanks to Nancy that I was saved, or so I thought. I wanted to express my gratitude, but Daniel's expression turned grave.
Nancy? What are you talking about, Mom? Nancy left for a trip, leaving you behind.
What? For a moment, I thought I had misheard. But Daniel, who seldom shows anger, was visibly shaking. It wasn't a misunderstanding. Nancy left me behind to go on a trip? The source of my earlier discomfort was finally clear. If Nancy had indeed been the one to inform Daniel of my condition, why hadn't she arranged for an ambulance on the spot? Was it because she was too flustered? No, after contacting Daniel, she could have easily made the arrangements. Was it because she was running late for her flight? Frankly, given Nancy's character and her previous behavior, it makes more sense that she wouldn't come back at all. So, how did Daniel find out about my condition and come home? Who informed Daniel?
Hey, is Jennifer going to preschool?
The image of Jennifer, crying just before I lost consciousness, came to mind. Until now, I had been too overwhelmed to notice her absence, but that dear Jennifer wasn't here. A chilling fear ran down my spine. Was she at home alone? That seemed unlikely. Then, had she safely made it to preschool? Yes, that must be it, without a doubt. I hope that's the case. I hoped so desperately that was the case. But Daniel, with a pained expression, remained silent.
Jennifer is at preschool, right?
Jennifer came to my office by herself to tell me about Mom's condition.
Overwhelmed by my questioning, Daniel spoke in a voice trying to suppress his anger. It was as if I had been struck by a physical blow. The company where Daniel works is a 30-minute bike ride away. But that's strictly in the case of adults. For a 5-year-old child, especially one in distress, it would take much longer. And there was a real risk she could have gotten lost. Daniel continued.
She came all by herself, without an umbrella, in the rain.
Where is Jennifer now? She's safe, right?
Right? Pressing for answers, Daniel could only clench his lips in frustration. Signaling the worst had not occurred but was still a grave concern.
Jennifer developed a high fever and was admitted here along with Mom. She's in the pediatric ward now.
I see. I felt relieved that the worst had not happened. However, given the circumstances, it wouldn't have been surprising if that were the case, and given Daniel's condition, there might still be a risk of a sudden change in the situation. It's probably a situation where making assumptions is not allowed.
Mom, I'm sorry. It's my inadequacy that has led to both you and Jennifer facing such danger.
Daniel's shoulders began to tremble again. I was at a loss for words. Daniel's anger was directed not at us, but at Nancy, who pursued her own pleasures without regard for others. Had I been the only victim, I could have managed to minimize the impact of her actions on me. Yet, this incident has made it impossible to say that anymore. Even her own daughter could have been in a life-threatening condition. I never intended to defend Nancy from the start, but this incident has completely eliminated any possibility of doing so.
Mom, I'm sorry for keeping silent to avoid trouble, but I've made up my mind. It might upset Jennifer, but...
Daniel's face was expressionless, yet filled with a palpable sense of anger. A week passed. I was discharged and waited at Daniel's house for the day that would eventually come. And then, that day arrived.
I'm home. What's with these boxes? Lisa, what are these boxes for? Oh, have you finally decided to leave?
Nancy started making a fuss as soon as she arrived home, causing my heart rate to quicken from tension. Can this be okay? Looking over at Daniel, I saw he was also tense, yet his gaze was fixed straight ahead towards the door connecting the entrance to the living room. Even Daniel was nervous. What good does it do for me to be tense as well? I had to steel myself, focusing my gaze on the door just like him.
I'm exhausted. There's no place like home. Oh, Lisa. And Daniel, what's with that scary look?
Nancy entered, pulling a suitcase behind her. seemingly uninterested in our expressions, and settled down on an available sofa.
Food abroad is nice, but being American, I start to miss home cooking. Even food that looks and tastes bad might seem delicious now. So, Mom, could you make dinner?
Her demand was outrageously selfish. Fighting back the urge to yell in anger, I replied with calm.
Excuse me, but who are you? What? Are you saying you don't know me? Have you developed Alzheimer's or something?
Nancy burst into laughter at her own remark. However, realizing something was amiss, especially with Daniel giving her a stern look, she finally sensed the change.
What's going on? Daniel, you too, say something. Then I will. I'm no longer your husband, and you're not my wife. Please leave this house immediately.
Nancy was visibly shocked by this declaration.
What are you talking about, Daniel? Exactly what I said. I'm not your husband anymore. This is the proof.
Daniel then handed her an envelope. It was addressed to Nancy.
What's this? Just open it, and you'll see.
Curiosity piqued, neither I nor Nancy knew what it contained. Therefore, without opening it, I can't know the details of what's written inside the letter. Nancy did the same, opening the envelope with suspicion and then reading through the letter. Whether she immediately understood the content or not, she widened her eyes and slammed the letter onto the table.
What is this, a divorce decree? Exactly. Our divorce is finalized. Your belongings are packed at the entrance. Can you please leave now?
What?
When did you file for divorce? When did I ever agree to this? This is forgery. A serious crime.
Unlike Nancy's fury, Daniel remained composed, simply stating the facts.
Forgery? What are you talking about? Remember when you kept coming home in the morning after being out all night? Have you forgotten what I proposed back then?
Nancy was at a loss for words. It seems she has some idea about what's going on.
Back then, you told me, mocking me for being too cowardly to file it, after I showed you the divorce papers. You signed them willingly. How can you call that forgery?
Nancy said nothing. No, couldn't say anything would be more accurate in this case. Daniel continues quietly.
Nancy, I've always thought you were stressed from our marriage and parenting, so I didn't say much about you going out with friends. But when you started coming home in the mornings, I had to speak up because it wasn't good for Jennifer's upbringing. After Mom moved in, it was different. It was one thing asking for help with chores, but your attitude and demands towards Mom were excessive. Jennifer and I were worried something might happen to Mom again, so we suggested living together. We never intended for Mom to be treated like a housekeeper. Yet, you treated Mom like one, doing as you pleased, and left Mom and a crying Jennifer behind to go on a trip with friends. Is that what a mother, or even a person, should do?
Nancy's face turns pale. And then, as if finally realizing, she looked around and asked us.
By the way, where's Jennifer? I don't see her.
Her inquiry came too late. As planned, I made a face as if I was about to cry and quietly nodded my head to avoid suspicion. I'm not confident in my acting, but I wonder if it's going well.
Jennifer is no longer with us.
What? What do you mean she's not here?
Nancy, believing the act, began to get angry again. Daniel declared.
Jennifer came to my office to tell me about Grandma's condition, all by herself, in the rain without an umbrella. We rushed home together, but she had a high fever and was admitted to the same hospital as Mom. However,
anyone would choke on their words there, imagining the worst possible scenario. As Daniel intended, it seems Nancy also envisioned that scenario. Her face, previously flushed with anger, turned pale again. Now, it's time for the finishing touch.
You're no longer Jennifer's mother or my wife. Your things are at the entrance. Leave. I don't want to see you again. Leave now.
Yes. Even though it was an act, it seemed that Nancy was intimidated by Daniel's vehement demeanor. Nancy scrambled into the hallway and then hurriedly dashed outside, clutching as many cardboard boxes as she could carry. Time passed. And when it was clear Nancy wouldn't return, Daniel let out a deep sigh and lay down on the sofa.
I don't think acting is for me, even if it was my idea.
But your performance was convincing. Maybe you should join the community theater after retiring?
Please, no jokes, Mom.
Daniel's gentle demeanor returned. After that, even more time passed. Eventually, Jennifer was discharged from the hospital, having recovered fully. Fortunately, a few days after Nancy fled the house, she was able to be discharged from the hospital safely. To be honest, I was hesitant about whether it was okay to tell young Jennifer that Nancy and Daniel had gotten divorced and that Mom was gone. However, hiding the truth wasn't an option, and it was shared with Jennifer, prepared for her possible hurt.
It's sad Mom's not here, but I'm not lonely because Grandma is with me.
Jennifer's statement didn't seem forced. Perhaps she had her own thoughts about Nancy. What became of Nancy afterward remains unknown. It seems her agreement to live together was motivated not just by wanting someone to handle household chores but also by eyeing my savings. Now, with her plans foiled, she likely returned to her parents' home. In our new home. In a corner of the living room, where the family gathers, a single painting was hung. It was a picture of Jennifer's future dream, diligently drawn at preschool.
When I grow up, I want to be a nurse and help lots of people like Grandma.
Jennifer's face, radiant like the nurse in her drawing, made me hope fervently that her kind dream would come true.